So what happens when your effort becomes identity? And this is where it gets uncomfortable because we're not just talking about pacing, we're talking about identity. You get praised for endurance. You get medals for pushing past limits. You keep going. And for a long time, I confused depletion with dedication. I didn't feel proud unless I was exhausted. It became a badge of honor. I think about it all the time. You could slap each other on the back and be like, I just worked a 36-hour shift. And next guy would come up and be like, I just worked a 48-hour shift and it was a shitty ass shift. We didn't sleep at all. It's like, why would that be a badge of honor? I wouldn't want a single paramedic to show up to my father or my mother's house in a crisis with a paramedic who just praised themselves for working the last 48 hours on no sleep. Nobody wants that. Why is that something that we're proud of? It's not work ethic. That's conditioning. This is Hustle Rebels, a podcast for people who know how to grind, but are starting to question the cost. I'm Renae, and here we talk about success, burnout, and nervous system regulation without glorifying exhaustion or sacrificing your health, relationships, or your sense of self, and without pretending ambition is the problem. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Hustle Rebels, the show for people who know how to grind but are starting to question the costs. I'm Renae, founder of Wayward Wellness Coaching, and this episode was sparked by a conversation I had this week with my next guest, Erika Coleman, whose full interview will drop next week. Erika built a $1 million virtual training company, studies stress, motivation, and performance at Harvard. Now she talks about something that most high achievers resist hearing. You don't have to give your all to give your best. And when she said that, I truly felt it in my bones because a lot of us built our identity on being the one who gives everything. And truly, the week after the Super Bowl still has me thinking about how the Broncos quarterback gave it his all in the overtime against the Bills for their chance to continue towards the Super Bowl, and then injured his ankle. We were on our toes the whole time because trust me, the Bills are my pride and joy. Hero effort, real consequence. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why your nervous system can't live in championship mode all the time, why intensity becomes addictive for us high performers, how over-effort quietly sabotages long-term success, and how to recalibrate without becoming soft, lazy, or mediocre. If you're ambitious but don't want ambition to cost you your health, your relationships, or your identity, subscribe now because next week's conversation with Erika goes even deeper. All right, let's zoom out and get into it. The Broncos quarterback gave everything in overtime against the Bills, like I said, my team. And then he injured his ankle. He left it all on the field, and in doing so, may have sacrificed their chance to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to blame it on that, but he did give the Pats an easy pass, not going to lie. That's not weakness, it's not lack of heart, but that is what happens sometimes when you treat overtime like it's the final game, but it's not. And I think a lot of us are living like that. Not in stadiums, but in offices, in relationships, and in our own heads. Let's be honest. Championship mode feels so powerful. Adrenaline hits. Focus sharpens. Everything else fades out. You feel important. You feel needed. You feel valuable. And if you grew up in an environment where value had to be earned, that intensity becomes addictive. For first responders, we're literally wired for it. For high performers in corporate spaces, the praise often comes during crisis. For entrepreneurs, the dopamine spike hits hardest during launch weeks. For musicians, the rush is in the performance, not in the rehearsals. Championship mode feels alive. The problem is, though, it's not sustainable. Your nervous system is designed for spikes, not for residency. If you stay in fight or flight long enough, one of these three things happens. 1, you burn out. 2, you get injured, physically or emotionally. 3, you shut down. And most high achievers don't burn out dramatically. They slowly disconnect. So what happens when your effort becomes identity? And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because we're not just talking about pacing, we're talking about identity. Because if you're the one who handles it all, shows up all the time, pushes through, never bitches and complains, always takes that overtime shift, they can always count on you. You're the one that volunteers first and says yes before thinking. You're just always that yes man. Then intensity becomes your personality. And slowing down feels like a threat to who you are, and it just feels uncomfortable. I have lived this, and honestly, I still struggle with it. In the fire service, you don't get praised for regulation. You get praised for endurance. You don't get medals for pacing. You get medals for pushing past limits. You keep going. And for a long time, I confused depletion with dedication. I didn't feel proud unless I was exhausted. Listen to that again. I didn't feel proud unless I was exhausted. It became a badge of honor, and it still is. I think about it all the time. You could slap each other on the back and be like, I just worked a 36-hour shift. And next guy would come up and be like, I just worked a 48-hour shift and it was a shitty-ass shift. We didn't sleep at all. It's like, why would that be a badge of honor? I wouldn't want a single paramedic to show up to my father or my mother's house in a crisis with a paramedic who just praised themselves for working the last 48 hours on no sleep. Nobody wants that. Why is that something that we're proud of? It's not work ethic. That's conditioning. So here's the overtime trap. Let's go back to the Broncos quarterback. He didn't play wrong. He didn't lack heart. He gave everything in overtime. But overtime is not the final game. He still had 2 more games. He still had to beat the Pats and still go to the Super Bowl. And if you injure yourself in overtime against the Bills before you still have another game to get to the Super Bowl, you might not be available for what's next. And he wasn't. He made it so easy for the Pats to just sleep their way through the next game and go straight to the Super Bowl. I joke with everyone here in Massachusetts that the game against the Broncos and the Pats were either going to have a super easy win or an embarrassing loss with a second-string quarterback that sat the bench for the entire season, right? This is the trap for high achievers. You keep answering regular season problems with championship-level intensity. Every email gets adrenaline. Every disagreement gets internal stress. And every opportunity gets, I must prove myself. Then your body pays the price. It leads to things like headaches, sleep disruption, irritability, short fuses, numbness, emotionally and physically, loss of joy, the inability to rest on vacations or weekends or wherever, not because you're incapable, but because you never come down. And then you get to the point where people just tell you, just do less, and why that doesn't work. This is something Erika and I unpack deeply next week. High performers hate advice like, just slow down, just rest, just don't care so much. That doesn't work. In fact, I would say that it probably exacerbates it, because your drive isn't random. It's tied to safety. If effort equals belonging, and if achievement equals approval, if productivity equals worth, then doing less feels dangerous to your nervous system. So instead of telling yourself to do less, I want you to do this. Differentiate. Not everything deserves championship energy. Not everything is overtime. You don't have to remove ambition. You just have to aim it correctly. So here's a recalibration framework. Insight is useless if you don't know what to do with it at 8:17 a.m. on a Tuesday when your Slack blows up and your cortisol is spiking. So here's how this actually can play out in real life, not theory, but in real life. Number 1, I want you to name the game and do it physically. Before you open the email, before you walk into the meeting, or before you respond to that text, pause and literally say in your head, or even out loud, What game is this? Is this a championship game or is this a regular season game? Now here's the key. Don't just label it. Adjust your physiology. Here's an example. Say you get an email. You open this email from your boss and it says, "Can we talk?" Or it's something about your most recent work. Immediate spike. Your heart rate goes up, your shoulders tense. Your mind starts writing the worst case scenario. You just entered into overtime. But is this actually a championship moment? No, it's not. It's just a conversation. So instead of responding immediately, here's what you could do. Put both feet on the floor. Exhale longer than you inhale. It helps release the vagus nerve. Drop your shoulders intentionally. Yes, posture does matter. Wait 90 seconds before replying. That is you physically lowering your intensity 20% at least. This is teaching your nervous system that this is not a stadium. It's not a championship game. This is a fucking office. And I don't need to respond with 90% intensity. Now you can go ahead and respond to this email with a level head and a clear mind. You'll be surprised at the difference in conversation that you might have in that email. Example 2, a simple household argument. Let's say your partner forgets something. You feel disrespected, you feel unseen, you feel a surge. You can feel yourself gearing up for championship playoff mode. Ask yourself, is this about values or is this about the dishes? If it's about the dishes, this is regular season shit. Lower your tone, lower your speed, lower your volume. Take a perspective shift. Maybe your partner forgot something because they were stressed out at work themselves, and it wasn't directed at you. Championship energy in domestic life destroys connection. Save it for real-life conversations about alignment, finances, and parenting. The stuff that actually shaped your life. Example 3, a social media post. Say you're about to post something. You rewrite it 14,000 different times. Your nervous system is acting like you're defending a dissertation. Ask yourself, is this the Super Bowl or is this a Tuesday post? Regular season content can build consistency. Just post it. Move on. Who cares? Number 2, the pace question. I want you to ask yourself, if I continue at this pace, will I have energy left to celebrate? That's a very powerful question. But here's how to make it real. Pick one current commitment that you have, a launch, a big project, a fitness goal, a busy season at work. Now answer honestly. On a scale of 1 to 10, how depleted will I be when this ends? If you're already at an 8 or a 9, you're not pacing, you're just surviving. Here's the adjustment. Remove one non-essential task. Delay one thing that is ego-driven but not outcome-driven. Reduce one perfection standard by 10%. High performers over-polish. I am a perfect example of this in many aspects of my life. It's so easy to want to control so many different things, especially when you are a perfectionist in many different ways. I am a perfectionist. I would not venture to say OCD, but I do like to make sure things are at a higher standard. And so it's very hard to release control in many ways. So this is a great question to ask yourself, and I ask myself, is this refinement moving the needle or is it soothing my anxiety? Sometimes that extra hour isn't excellence, it's just fear, and fear doesn't deserve overtime. Number 3, the presence question. This one separates people who talk about growth from people who actually do grow. I want you to ask someone that you value in your life. In the last month, have I felt present to you? Not, do you think I'm working too much? Don't ask them, am I doing enough? Ask them, in the last month, have I felt present to you? Because presence is the opposite of overtime living. And when they answer, don't justify anything. If they say, you've been distracted, you're here but you're not here, you just seem tired, don't defend. Take it as data. Now ask a follow-up. What would more presence look like to you? That gives you behavioral direction. It could be something like no phone at dinner, one uninterrupted conversation per week, or not multitasking during stories. Championship mode steals presence first, and presence is what you'll regret losing. Number 4, here's a bonus tool, an intensity audit. For the next 7 days, I want you to notice, where does your body spike unnecessarily? Things like your jaw clenching while you're reading an email, your shoulders tensing up during calendar planning, holding your breath while you're scrolling through social media, or irritation at minor inconveniences. Those are overtime signals or signals of burnout. When you notice one, say internally, this is regular season. And soften something physically. This isn't about becoming calm. It's about becoming selective, differentiating. And number 5, this is a hard truth, and it's an uncomfortable piece. So brace yourself. Some of you don't want to lower intensity because overtime makes you feel important. If you're not needed urgently, if no one's depending on you, if nothing is on fire, then who are you? That's identity work. And that's why next week's conversation with Erika matters so much, because pacing isn't about laziness. It's about sustainability. And sustainability is what wins seasons, not heroics in overtime. You don't lose championships because you lack heart. You lose them because you never come down. You don't burn out because you're weak. You burn out because you never differentiate. Everything cannot be a Super Bowl game Sunday. Your nervous system isn't built for that. So let's bring this home and wrap it up. Today we talked about what happens when you live in championship mode all of the time. How it feels powerful, focused, driven, productive. But it's not sustainable. We also talked about how effort quietly becomes identity. How somewhere along the way, giving everything became proof that you're valuable. And how overtime intensity might win you a moment, but it can injure your long-term performance, just like the Broncos quarterback in OT. We talked about why just do less just doesn't work. Because for people like us, that sounds like care less. And we don't want to care less. We want to care well. And we talked about recalibration, not shrinking your ambition, not abandoning your drive, and not becoming mediocre. We definitely can't handle that. But learning how to lower your intensity without lowering your standards. Because here's the difference. You're not weak. You're over-intensifying. That's different. And if you learn to regulate intensity instead of proving your worth through exhaustion, you don't lose your edge. You sharpen it. Now, next week, you're going to hear my full conversation with Erika Coleman, and this is where we're going to go deeper. She talks about this idea of not giving your all as if it is every single day like a championship game. She also introduces her concept of even achieving, what it actually looks like to pursue excellence without burning down your health, your relationships, and your nervous system in the process, and I'm very excited for you guys to hear it. This episode sets the lens. Next week, we expand it. If this conversation stirred something in you, I'd love to have you inside Burn the Blueprint Live Masterclass. It's my free 3-day live training happening February 15th through the 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Each session is 45 minutes long. The replay will also be available in case you cannot make it live. We're going to be stripping away the identities, conditionings, and inherited beliefs that keep you stuck, disconnected, and operating in survival mode, even when you look successful on the outside. Because sometimes burnout isn't about the workload, it's about living inside of a blueprint you never consciously chose. The link is going to be in the show notes. And if this episode resonated, share it with someone who lives in overtime mode all the time. Subscribe to the show so that you'll be able to hear when the next episode drops. And if you want to help keep Hustle Rebels independent and honestly able to talk about whatever the fuck we want without filters, consider supporting the podcast. I will see you guys next week.